morning, everybody. I'm Tejas Jain, and I'm here to talk about the Indian education system. But before that, I've got a quick question to ask all of you. How many of you, at least once in your life, felt that the Indian education system held you back from becoming the best version of yourself? Let me know by the show of your hands. Whoa, that's staggering. Almost 100% of the audience. I didn't expect that. Okay, that's a big number. What if I told you that the primary purpose of the Indian education system is not to help you become the best version of yourself? Well, then the question would be, what's the primary purpose of the Indian education system? I'll talk about it amid the speech, but for now, allow me to tell you that in a world tormented by cultural dissonance, political conflicts, economic challenges, and environmental aggravation, humanity needs a council of ethically responsible and publicly accountable leaders who can catalyze the wave of change. We just don't need leaders in the form of entrepreneurs, C-level executives, heads of states, and politicians, but also in the form of activists, teachers, managers. Leadership has always been pivotal for the growth and progress of the world. But in a world full of influencers and the growing influence, it's getting difficult to discern the right from the wrong ones. And perhaps at no other time in history, the leadership, education has been more crucial than it is now. Over the years, we have witnessed the visionaries, leaders, entrepreneurs express their concern about how the Indian education system blinkers the approach of the students, how it makes the extraordinary students settle for ordinary achievements, how it makes them commemorate mediocrity and in a way makes them surrender to inadequacy. And that's why today I stand in front of you to talk about the dimensions of the Indian education system that we shall unravel in order to unleash the full potential of students that are dependent on the system for growth and development. Now, in an ideal world, the purpose of education would have been to help students become the best versions of themselves. The teachers would have strived to help students attain their full potential so that they can further decide their objectives, their goals, their motives, and work towards them meritoriously. But the purpose of education system, not just in India, but most of the parts of the world, is to make students literate and employable, so that they can earn a living and the nation can be helped or nation can be benefited economically and sociologically through their work. For years, the government has seen the education system as a tool that catalyzes the process of converting young, inexperienced, talented, sometimes not so talented individuals into socio-economic assets. And I believe they're right to an extent. That is how it should be. The government has to take care of the masses, and they design and develop their systems accordingly. And probably that's why the purpose of the Indian education system is to make students employable. And it's driven by the need to provide employment to the students. Now that makes me wonder, what is the most important skill, or probably the most basic skill, that's required to become employable? Well, the answer is simple and has remained unchanged for almost 2 centuries now: the technical skills. Now, the technical skills refers to the sum total of ability, proficiency, and knowledge required to perform specific job-related tasks. You would require technical skills to perform duties in the field of engineering, data analytics, management, agriculture, mining, and a zillion other sectors. These skills are domain-specific and keep changing from domain to domain, from departments to departments, from sectors to sectors. Now, when we talk about the technical skills, let me quickly give you an example. Now, technical skills for somebody working in an IT organization or in the software development division would be related to programming, understanding of operating systems, proficiency in coding languages like HTML, SQL, etc. On the other hand, technical skills for somebody working in the same IT company, organization, but in the accounts department would be related to understanding of P&L, ledger, journal, proficiency in maintaining accounts, and knowledge related to accounting standards, norms, and principles. Just bear in mind that these are the most important skills to get a job. It is almost impossible to procure employment without having these skills. From becoming an accountant to becoming an investment banker, from becoming a bus driver to becoming a Formula One car racer, from becoming a mechanic to becoming an astronaut, you would require these skills. And probably that's why the emphasis of governments have always stayed on developing the technical skills of the students. Let me quickly tell you that what's common between the English Education Act of 1835, the recommendations made by the Hunters Commission to the Royal Crown of British in 1882, the Sergeant Plan of Education by the Central Advisory Board of Education 1944 and Medallion Commission 1952-53. All of them emphasized upon developing the technical and vocational skills of students so that they could become employable, so that they can find commercial jobs. We're talking about the first 100 years of the development of the Indian education system, where all these people or committees or commissions emphasized on developing the commercial, the technical and the vocational skills of the students that could be commercialized. Well, do you know what puts us in the spot of bother almost 200 years after the inception of the modern Indian education system? That a whopping 93% of MBA graduates, 80% of engineers, 89% of hotel management graduates, and 97% of accounting graduates were not just unemployed in their fields, but were declared unemployable in a report published by Ernst & Young and Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry in the later half of the previous decade. Now that brings us to the next question, that what is it that's really needed? But before that also, let me quickly tell you that back in the day when this education system was made, the purpose was to make people employable, right? The purpose still remains the same. But back in the day, due to lack of institutions, getting educated was a matter of respect, was a matter of reverence, was a matter of pride. But now, the times have changed. Back in the day, it had more to do with respectability, now it has more to do with acceptability. Back in the day, what organizations wanted to check was the aptitude of employees. Now they also wish to check the attitude of employees. Back in the day, they thought that it's easier to develop will than to develop skill, but now they've started to believe that it's easier to develop skill than to develop will. Back in the day, they were ready to accept people who were taught what to think, but now they need people who know how to think. And that's why the requirements to become employable have changed. Now let's quickly talk about the skills that are necessary to become employable these days, or probably the skills that are essential to develop leadership and also to procure employment in a world where employers have started to look for go-getters and trailblazers in their employees. There are two skills precisely. Number one is human skills and number two is conceptual skills. Now when we talk about human skills, these are skills that constitute our ability to understand, direct and influence people and situations. In other words, these are skills that are necessary to succeed in the workplace, or probably let's call them developable interpersonal skills that are essential to succeed at the workplace these days. These skills are needed in all professions, regardless of sectors or departments. When we talk about human skills, we're talking about skills like communication skills, leadership skills, we're talking about adaptability, teamwork. Let me quickly give you an example. Now, most of the people sitting over here might think that communication is just restricted to conversing with people on one-to-one basis. But let me tell you, it's a wider phenomenon that comprises of active listening, negotiations, persuasions, public speaking, presentations, reading body language, writing reports, and a lot more. Another human skill that's very much essential is the leadership skills. When we talk about the leadership skills, a lot of people think that this is just about commanding people and giving orders. Well, again, it's a wider phenomenon that comprises of resolving problems, taking decisions when push comes to shove, delegation of work, motivating and influencing subordinates, training and developing the employees, and a lot more. Let me quickly tell you that according to LinkedIn's 2019 Global Talent Trends report, 89% of the recruiters believe that if a hire doesn't work out, it's usually due to lack of soft skills. But the sad reality is we still do not work on these skills. We still have not incorporated the curriculum for these skills. Also, let me tell you that according to an article published in Forbes, Deloitte in 2017 reported that soft skills intensive will account for 2/3 of all jobs by 2030. Is that not a reason big enough for the government to incorporate these skills in the current education system, or the curriculum to be developed in such a manner that these skills could be acquired by the students? Now, let me tell you, now I wish to talk about another set of skills that's essential. That's called the conceptual skills. Now, when we talk about the conceptual skills, we're talking about the skills that are needed to understand complex ideas, situations, scenarios, and concepts. And also it constitutes our ability to come up with creative, logical, and sustainable solutions. When we talk about conceptual skills, we're talking about skills like abstract thinking, critical, cognitive, and creative thinking, analytical and logical thinking. Now these skills are largely required by the top level managements to come up with strategies, to set the vision of the organization, to devise campaigns, to come up with policy framework, to establish the structure of the organization, and a lot of other things. And these skills are important. I don't say that. The World Economic Forum says that in the report called Future of Jobs. They've listed these 4 skills in the list of top 15 skills that are required in 2025. Analytical thinking and innovation, creativity, originality and initiative, complex problem solving, critical thinking and analysis. These are all conceptual skills. Now let me quickly tell you about 3 skills approach to leadership and management by Robert Katz to back my argument. Now back in the day, in 1955, Mr. Robert Katz came up with a theory that goes by the name 3 skills approach to leadership and management. It basked in the glow of popular acclaim once it got published in the Harvard Business Review in 1955. The theory suggests that the effectiveness and efficiency of leadership depends on 3 skills of a leader. The technical skills that are already being taught, the human skills that are not being taught, and the conceptual skills that are again not being taught. Now according to him, or probably the theory postulates that usually in an organization there are 3 levels of management. The ground level management, the top level management, and the middle level management. Now when we talk about the ground level management, the leaders at this level of management require more of technical skills than conceptual skills. Also, let me make it very clear that leaders require all 3 skills, but especially the leaders working on the ground level of the management directly have to interact with employees. And since the core skills of employees are the technical skills that we just discussed, these leaders shall possess strong technical skills because they have to take care of problem solving of employees, they have to take care of building the employees, they have to take care of like mentoring and coaching employees. So they would require more of technical skills than conceptual skills, the top level of management, the lower level of management. When we talk about the top level of management, they require more of conceptual skills since they have to work with plenty of ideas. Since they have to come up with their policy framework, they have to come up with the structure of the organization, since they have to devise strategies, since they have to devise campaigns. So they require more of conceptual skills. And when we talk about the human skills, these are skills that are required by all 3 levels of management, probably in the same proportion. Because ultimately, the leaders have to work with humans. And these skills have measured up to be quite significant in terms of deciding the demeanor, the conduct, and the behavior of employees. A set of strong human skills add greatly to the quantum and degree of success executives experience during the course of their careers. But sadly, still, we let the students develop these skills on their own, or probably we expect the students to develop these skills on their own along the way. The NEP, by far, is probably the best policy in terms of education, but its major emphasis is again on developing technical education because that's important to make people employable. It has started to talk about human skills and conceptual skills, but there's a long way to go. And to be honest, I believe that since the policymakers and implementers are still facing a tough time making quality technical education accessible to all, it will be really difficult for them to incorporate modules related to human skills and conceptual skills in the curriculum. And that's why I think the institutions shall directly decide to take the bull by the horn. What the institutions can do right now is they can start to recognize and prioritize the X factor of all education systems. The factor that can exponentially upsurge the graph of learning outcomes for the students. The factor which is by far the most underdeveloped, underutilized, and underestimated component of the Indian education system right now. The co-curricular, ladies and gentlemen. The co-curricular programs are a set of activities or workshops, or maybe the amalgamation of 2 that usually take place outside of the conventional classroom setting, but are complementary to what students learn at school. Now, since the system is struggling to incorporate these skills, the institution shall shoulder the responsibility to come up with human skills and conceptual skills-centric co-curricular programs to help students develop these skills. They should strive to strengthen the cultures of councils, clubs, and societies in their institutions, so that there could be a purposeful engagement of students, or probably a purposeful meeting of students, and they can develop conceptual skills and human skills along the way. It is important for the institutions to now encourage students to pull off cultural and educational events so that these students get to know or how these things are pulled off, or they get to conceptualize ideas, they get to work in a team. And also, the institution shall encourage students to partake in literary activities, simulations like model leadership workshops and conclaves, so that they can develop the human skill, they get to speak a lot, they get to develop conceptual skills over there. Until the time the institutions start to work on this, I would like to urge the students to become proactive in the classrooms, because that is where the leadership, the teamwork and the public speaking begins. I would urge you to do as many projects, group projects rather, and presentations as you can. I would urge you to conduct events like this. These, I would want you to certainly travel and explore the world so that you get to understand how human psychology works in different parts of the country or probably world. And I would urge you to do freelance projects so that you get to know that how the organizations operate, what is it that they really want these days. And once you think you're ready, come join us, the biggest youth force of the country. Because in face of all impossible odds, we, the youth of this country, have now decided to not capitulate to mediocrity, to not surrender to inadequacy, and to not accept weakness as an answer. Because in face of all impossible odds, we, the youth of this country, have now have the gumption to ask for the seat at the table where decisions about our hanging fate are being taken. Because in face of all impossible odds, we, the youth of this country, have now decided to go to incredible lengths in order to refill the walls of opportunities for the likes of us and for our countrymen. Thank you so much.